and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ruth Ann from Abundant Blooms Flower Farm in Dorr, Michigan, Zone 6A now. I am in the middle of a series on woodies. We're talking all about woody shrubs for your cut flower farm, and this is the third video in a series. So there's more information in the two previous videos, which I will link in the description. And today we're going to be talking about all of the shrubs that I planted in 2024. I added over 900 shrubs to my farm. In 2022, I planted about 160 shrubs, and I talk all about those in the previous videos, including like how they're doing now, how much I've been able to harvest off of them, how I harvest them, when I harvest them, how I treat them post-harvest care, their vase life, and different thoughts on those shrubs. There's 6 different ones that I planted. So look back for like specific details on woodies. That's in video number 2. And then the first one is also about like why I grow woodies and how I decided to do that. Today we're going to talk about the woodies that I planted in 2024 and how I came to that decision. And I think that this will be helpful for you so you can determine, if you're going to scale your farm in this way, how to make the decisions about what to invest into. So before I invested heavily in 2024, I started smaller in 2022, planted 160 woodies. So I took that information that I now have some growing experience with woodies in my farm and environment, and market research, how they sell, different things. So I took that information and applied it obviously to my 2024 planting. So I used my own personal experience. And then I just did hours and hours and hours of research. I also researched for my initial planting, of course, and then I did further research for this 2024 planting. So I'm a member of the ASCFG, which is the Association of Specialty Cut Flowers. There's some resources in there. I listened to all kinds of different things about like how to grow or what to grow. And then I also took Dave Dallion's course called Bulbs, Woodies, Perennials, and More through the Gardener's Workshop. I took that in, I think, 2022. I took that several years ago, but I referenced that, of course, when thinking about what to grow, what grows well here. And so I have taken that class. And sometimes people ask me like, well, how do you know so much? Like, wow, you just know all these things. And you're like, no, it's because I've spent thousands of dollars in education and hundreds of hours researching and applying that education. That's how I know everything. So all that to say, one more thing, I also primarily sell to florists, and if you want some tips about how to sell to florists, download my free guide about tips for selling flowers to florists. The link is in the description. It's really great, and then you'll be on my email list, and I'll send you even more great information, and you'll never miss a video. So not only did I do research of like how to grow and what to grow, I also researched my current customers. So I talked to the florists that I've worked with for 4 years, 5 years. And I asked them, what is difficult to source here in Michigan? What do they want more of? What do they need more of? What can they not get? And different things like that. Now I talked to some florists like who wouldn't be able to answer that. Like they wouldn't even know what a woody shrub was or what to grow. So I gave them, some ideas and kind of helped them along. And some of them are just more knowledgeable in growing as well. I'm looking down on my notes here. So I talked to my florists about what they need. And interestingly, I had multiple florists tell me the same exact shrub that they couldn't get, had a hard time getting, and would love to see more of locally. So that was like, oh, they want this, they need this, they're having a hard time with this. So obviously that was a consideration. Other considerations were my land. So the place where I placed the majority of these shrubs, not all of them, but about 600 plus of them, was in the boggiest area of my farm. And that's why I've actually never planted there before, because I would not be able to put crops out there in mid-May when I'm planting my spring and my annuals for summer, which is when I can plant them here. So I can't till this land very easily because it's so wet, and all the drainage kind of drains to my farm there. I've lived on this property for over 7 years. I've been farming it for over 5 years. And so I'm attuned to where, the water goes on my land. So it's important to understand your own land. So if you are growing in a sandy, well-drained soil. Some of these shrubs that I chose to grow might not be the right choice for you, because I chose to grow woodies that like wet, boggy areas, at least some of them that were going, most of them that were going in this location. So I considered my land. I considered my climate, of course, my zone. I am a zone 6. I did not plant anything that is for a zone 7. I'm not into babying shrubs in the winter and half of them dying. And then my family. So I have 5 very small children. I homeschool. I have a baby. I have a 14-month-old and a 3-year-old. So I have 2 very young children, and then I have a 6, 8 and 9-year-old. So I have 3 kids that are a little bit more older, but I still have 2 very needy, very young children. So I take that into consideration. So I planted some stuff that's not going to mature for several years. And I'm okay with that, because I'm okay with my production not doubling or, massively increasing. And I'm okay if it takes 2 or 3 years for those things to happen. Oh, and then I also considered, where am I going to sell these? Where am I going to sell? I mean, I planted 100 hydrangeas. In 5 years, they can be producing 50 stems per plant. Where am I going to sell all those hydrangeas? Well, I'm pretty confident I can sell them. So, but because I have so many connections and relationships, not only here in West Michigan, but even in a broader regional sense, I'm going to be able to sell my flowers. But I've been doing this for 5 years, selling to florists. Like I have a lot of connections. I have good quality. I have customers that trust me. And I know that if they go away, I'll be able to find other ones if I need. So but you do, before you plant something like this, you should have some really good confidence that you're going to be able to sell, because if not, I would not recommend investing $8,000 into shrubs if you have no idea where you're going to sell them. You got to have some kind of a customer base and figure that out. I would also consider growing shrubs somewhat of an advanced farming, advanced flower farming. So I don't think that they're bad to start early in your journey, because they take a little bit to mature, particularly in smaller quantities. But it is a little bit more of an advanced thing. You should have a cooler for most shrubs. I mean, hydrangeas, don't grow hydrangeas if you don't have a cooler. I don't think that would be very successful. You don't maybe need a cooler for every single shrub, but you're going to need, and they're huge, you've got to be able to transport them and different considerations like that. So you want to consider that, or at least by the time that they mature, are you growing into that kind of an environment? Okay, so moving on. So I ordered these from 2 different places, from 2 different sources. I've talked about Spring Meadow Nursery before. That's where I ordered my original planting from. So I ordered a lot of these, most of these from 900 from Spring Meadow Nursery here, which is local to me in Grand Haven. However, in Grand Haven, Michigan, it's about 30 minutes away from me. You don't have to live local to them. They ship nationwide and into Canada. So if you're Canadian, they are a source for you. We're actually very close to the Canadian borders. So I was actually able to tour them. A couple of flower farmers here from West Michigan did a tour of Spring Meadow Nursery in June, I believe. So before I put in my major order, I was in the process of talking with my rep about what to put in. And so it was really cool to be able to actually go to Spring Meadow Nursery, which I have been there before because I picked up, but I got a tour of their entire production, and including their trial greenhouses, which I cannot show you any photos of, but it was really, really interesting and really obviously helpful. And I did make some decisions based on that tour, I really want to try to grow this. So it was fun, but they do ship all over the United States. Their minimum is 16 shrubs. So a tray is 16 shrubs. They're shrub liners, they call them, or quick turns. They're pretty big. They're 4-inch pots, but they grow pretty fast. So I've had really great success with that. I planted them in August, all the ones from Spring Meadow, I think all in August. Some of them were back ordered, but I'm pretty sure I got them all in the ground by the end of August. So the first place that I got them from was Spring Meadow, and I also got them from Farmer Bailey, which I think is he's pretty well known. He's really grown in recent years. So he was a plug supplier or a plug broker, and recently he's done woodies. So I think maybe this is only the second year. And he's doing some really great stuff because he's doing it specifically for cut flower farmers. Spring Meadow Nursery is not specifically for cut flower farmers. They're an enormous proven winners shrub supplier for the entire United States. So their main bread and butter is nursery supply, landscape planting. So not to say that they don't have some overlap and some correlation, but they're not focusing just on cut flowers like Farmer Bailey totally is, which is great for our industry. And he has different varieties than Spring Meadow has. I mean, they have some similarities, but he has different varieties, and he's importing some of these from the Netherlands and other places. So it's been really great. So I'm just going to start with what I got from him. It's a much shorter list. So from Farmer Bailey, I got these in April, by the way. So these came in April. The Spring Meadow ones came in August. So in April, I got 10 Deer Villa, which is the variety is Magical Dark Delight. They're a shrub with really dark foliage. The next I got 10 Magical Ruby Falls Snowberry, which is a pink snowberry. And then I got 20 Magical Avalanche Snowberry. So I just got a couple, mostly snowberries. So Spring Meadow doesn't have white snowberries, and I really, really wanted white snowberries. In fact, so much so that I've ordered more Magical Avalanche Snowberry. So Spring Meadow doesn't have white snowberries, so obviously having another source is great. In fact, I've ordered actually a few more white snowberries for this 2025 spring. I also ordered Philadelphus from Farmer Bailey, but he was unable to get it imported. So that was sad to me, but that's okay. I ordered some from Spring Meadow. So now I'm going to kind of rapid fire through the Spring Meadow shrubs that I planted in 2024. So I'll put pictures of all of these up on the screen, and I'm just going to jump right in, and then I'll kind of talk about them at the end. So 16 Albia Sweet Emotion, which is a spring blooming pink shrub. 16 Caryopteris Bluebeard Beyond Midnight, which is a dark foliage with blue spike flowers for late summer, early fall. 32 Calicarpa Pearl Glam, which is a purple berry grown for its purple berries that bloom or that mature in late summer, early fall. And then Cephaloanthus, I'm not sure how you say that, Sugar Shack, or a button bush, which is grown for its white seed pods in late summer, early fall. You might be seeing a trend here, spring and fall. And then I have 48 Eternal White Quince, 32 Peach Quince. So quince is grown for it's a spring, early spring blooming flowering branch. I've got the 16 Arctic Fire Red Twig Dogwood, which is grown for its red branches in the winter. So when the leaves fall off, you sell the red branches. And then I have 16 Winecraft Black Smokebush, which I also already have 16 Winecraft Black Smokebush for my 2022 planting. So I'm doubling my production of the dark, it's a dark maroon, really, like a dark purpley color. And then I have a 32 Winecraft Gold Smokebush, which is the chartreusey green, again grown for its foliage, late summer. 18 for Cynthia Show Off is the variety, and that's a spring flowering shrub. And then here's a bunch of hydrangeas. So there's about 100 of them, I think. So maybe a little more than that. So I have 16 Fairy Trail White hydrangeas, 16 Fairy Trail Green, 16 Fairy Trail Bride. These are all cascading hydrangeas that are early summer bloomers. Then I have Hydrangea paniculatus, so 32 Limelight Prime, 16 Quickfire Fab, 16 Invincible Lace, and then I have 16 of the Macrophylla Let's Dance Skyview. I hope that I can get that to actually grow for me here. It's very difficult to grow Macrophyllas, hydrangeas successfully here in the north. They just don't seem to be very predictable. They're not very consistent. That's the word I'm looking for. They're not a very consistent bloomer. Okay, moving on to Ilex or Winterberry. So I planted a lot of Winterberry for multiple reasons. One of them is that is the shrub that my florists told me, multiple florists told me they had a hard time getting, and it grows well in boggy, not well drained, wet soil. So that was a win for me because that's the soil that I have. So does the dogwood, also grows well in bogs. So does the button bush, grows well in bogs. So like these were boggy areas. This is part of why I'm doing this, right? So 80 berry heavy Ilex or Winterberry. So that's the red berries that are for winter. 32 berry gold. So those are a gold yellow berry. And then 16 of Mr. Poppins. He's the pollinator. So you have to have him. He's not going to produce anything for me. Then I have Philadelphus or mock orange. Blooms early summer. So I have 16 Illuminata Sparks, which has a variegated foliage. It's a white fragrant flower that blooms in early summer. And then I have 48 Illuminata Spice, which is, again, early summer, fragrant white flower. This is the more traditional form. And then 32 Illuminata Towers, which I'm really excited about these. They grow on long spires. And then I've got some 9-bark. So I've got Summer Wine, 16 Summer Wine 9-bark. I already have Summer Wine 9-bark, so I'm doubling my production. 16 Ginger Wine 9-bark. Again, I already have 16 from the 2022 planting. Now I have 16 more. And 16 Tiny Wine 9-bark, which is the smaller leafed 9-bark, which a lot of my florists really like. And I have the Tiny Wine Gold, which they no longer carry at Spring Meadow. So that's the more chartreusey green. And this is a dark small leafed foliage. So again, they're like midsummer, early fall. And then I have a bunch of viburnums. So I have 4 different kinds of viburnums. So I have 16 Spice Girl viburnums. Those are grown for the large blush spring flowers, and they bloom in early spring. I have 16 Glitters and Glows viburnum, grown for the blueberries, mostly in the fall. They do also get spring flowers, so you can cut those. So you just have to kind of decide which one you want, because you won't get both. I mean, if you cut the blooms, you're not going to get the berries. So I already have 16 of these, so I'm doubling my production here. 32 Brandywine viburnum, grown for its berries. They're pink and blue. 32 Steady Eddie. They're early spring white lace cap flower, and apparently these rebloom. I am excited for this one. We'll see how the reblooming goes. I can't say I've had great success with reblooming lilacs, or it's just difficult because they rebloomed at different times, and I'm not growing these for my landscape. I don't just want like, oh look, there's, a couple lilac blooms. No, I want to be able to sell them. I want them to be predictable. So if I just get a trickle in here and there, it's not, so helpful to me as a cut flower grower. However, we'll see how this goes. I have 2 viburnums that are a white lace flower, and I got them, I don't know. I got them from somewhere before I started farming, with farming in mind, because I heard people all talk about viburnums. And so I have 2 actually pretty significant bushes of viburnum that get these incredible white lace cap flowers around Mother's Day. I'll put a picture of them up. I put them with my tulips. They were so beautiful and perfect, and man, if I could have more of those, that would be amazing. So I'm hoping these will be some early spring blooming flowers. Then I got 16 Seven Sunflower Heptacodium called Temple of Bloom. These are a tree actually, and they're grown for these orange seed pods that they produce in the fall. I'll put a picture up because I actually live really close to Walter's Gardens, which is a perennial plug supplier in the United States, and you can go through their display gardens anytime. It's always open to the public, so you can just drive through and walk through them. They have a little pavilion that shows you what to do. And so I actually go through them multiple times a year because it's fun to see what they have growing and blooming and different things. Anyway, so they had a 7 sunflower there, so that was cool to see last fall. And then kindly, I told you I took that tour, and man, they have these most incredible, amazing roses, and I don't grow roses for cut flower purposes. I think roses are gorgeous, but they tend to have a lot of maintenance that goes into them, a lot of spraying, a lot of prevention, a lot of disease, a lot of issues. And so a lot of cut flower farmers don't grow them for those reasons. But honestly, these were so beautiful. I had to try them. And not only that, but usually you have to order trays of 16, and they allowed me to get what they called a trial, which was very kind of them. So I got 8 of honey apricot and 8 reminiscent coral roses. So they're both grown for cutting. They have long straight stems. So we'll see how they go. Honestly, I was like, if they fail, I'm just going to put them around my landscape and enjoy them because they were so gorgeous. So I was going to talk a little bit about how I laid out my field and how I decided what to plant where. This is like actual footage of how I decided how to do that. And so I started by making a map of my area and how big it was. So the area up front is not a rectangle. It's not an exact, shape. So I measured it all, and then I came up with this plan for, how I was going to place things. And the closer you get to the front of our property, the wetter and boggier and more, mushy it gets. So I put the boggiest stuff up there. I started with the ilex, and then I went to the dogwood, and then buttonbush, and then I put my bigger smoke bushes, or my smoke bush, then my bigger 9-bark, then another smoke bush that's a little smaller, then my forsythia, then my spice curl viburnum, albia, then my mock orange, some viburnum. Okay, what are you taking into consideration? How are you going to plant? Yes, you're taking into consideration height. You're taking into consideration your soil. You're taking into consideration the wind, possibly. The sun. Oh, I forgot to mention that. This is all full sun. I have full sun. Everything's full sun. I don't have shade. These are not shade. Full sun. Full sun. Part of taking into account your land. It's all full sun. So then I did have a couple of other places that I planted these. So I planted them in this brand new front area, and then I did plant some in other areas. So I have like my original main field that used to have annuals in it mostly, and now it has like half annual. There are some plants that don't love wet areas, and I put them in a different area. I also put all of the hydrangeas in a little square. The idea is in my brain that someday, if I wanted to, I could put shade cloth over them, because they really do benefit from shade cloth. And so we'll determine that in the future, but all the hydrangeas are all in a little rectangle. So in the future, if I want to do that and build a shade structure, they're all together, and I could do that pretty easily. They're right outside the window, actually, over there. How did I plant them? I planted some of them into mulch, into wood chips that we get from the tree service free, if possible. Sometimes it's easier than others. And then I planted some into rows with landscape fabric in between them. So I had same as I did my 2022 planting. So I have like 12 inches and then 3 or 4 foot landscape fabric, and then 12 inches where I plant the plants, and then I put mulch and cardboard down. And then I have landscape fabric in between. I could not do that in the main new area that's all wet. If I did that, I would not be able to walk in there. That area, I would have so much erosion. I need to have roots in the ground. So you got to know your soil and your land. So I opted to plant a cover crop, which I got from Vitalized Seed. I can't remember what mix it was. I'll put a name up, and we'll see. I hope that works. So it's a perennial cover crop that we'll have to mow. I hope it was a good idea, because at the end of last summer, it took really well, and it was growing so quickly. We had to mow it twice a week. It was intense. So I'm hoping maybe it gets shaded out by the shrubs. I mean, I'm not really looking at, push mowing things twice a week. I just thought, oh yeah, we could do it once a week. So we'll see how it goes. Or we might just do it twice a week. Once the shrubs are big enough, we'll just mow it twice a week. But it'll be great mulch. It'll be great for our compost. So anyway, so that's how we planted those all the way down, all the way to the road. Also, I actually changed my entire field layout after I went to my AFCFG conference, as I hadn't planted this yet. I was getting the woodies very soon after. So I had planned to plant them in like long rows, and these are over 100 feet, and they're more like 150 feet. So these are pretty long rows. And then I listened to the talk by Joe Schmidt. I was in his talk, and he was saying that, you could plant them, thinking of spacing and laying out your beds, to plant in shorter rows if you can, because it's easier to harvest. And I thought, that is so smart. Why was I thinking I would do it the other way? Because then I can just have my buckets here, and I can have these relatively short rows. I mean, these are not that long. This is like 20 feet, 25 feet, and 30 feet. So this is actually not very wide. It's pretty narrow. It's just really long. And so I changed it to be shorter rows like this, instead of planting in the long row. So that was a really great tip. I think that's gonna, save me a lot of pain over the next decades, right? Because once you plant them, you're kind of stuck. So anyway, that is how I laid them out there. And then in other places, I just planted into wood chips. And I think in one space, I planted into landscape fabric, just like burned holes every 2 feet or whatever. That's the other thing. All of these shrubs are planted in row spacing is 18 to 24 inches, depending on how big the shrub is, and they're all 4 or 5 feet between each row. Yes, that is super, super close. If you are in any way familiar with landscape planting of shrubs, you might like freak out, but it's actually how it's supposed to go. Like, that's how you grow it. That's how you grow them for cut flower purposes, because you're cutting them down every year. You're pruning the whole plant. I mean, unless it blooms on old wood, right? So it's just a completely different method. One other thing of note is that things like the ilex, the winterberry, that stuff blooms on old wood. So if you plant 10 winterberry, you're either going to have a harvest every other year, or you're going to be harvesting off of 5. I don't recommend harvesting every other year. So just think, like, you need to cut that in half, because you're going to be harvesting off of old wood. It takes 2 years to get berries. The first year it grows and like gets ready for the berries and gets pollinated, and then the next year it gets the berries. So you have to have 2 years. So if you have, hence the reason why I have 80, of the heavy berry ilex, the red berry ilex, because I'm thinking, well, I'm only going to be cutting off of 40 of them. And so you want to have enough of a crop to market it. So you got to just take those things into consideration. So you have to know all these things before you plant the plants, so you know what you're taking into consideration as far as what you need for the future. And there's other ones of these that take significant time to mature. So like the viburnum, I have viburnum from 2022, and spirea. I have viburnum and spirea from 2022, and I have not cut off of them yet. And so they are going into their 3rd season, and I still have cut nothing off of them, because they just take longer to grow and mature. So just knowing, okay, how long is this going to take to grow and mature? And I don't know all the answers to all of these things either, but I do know that I probably am not going to harvest and sell my ilex for probably 3 years. But like the 9-bark will produce in the first year. Smokebush does produce in the first year if planted in the fall. If you plant it in April, I would not expect pretty much anything off of that planting. If you want to know more about these kinds of specifics, go back to the second video that I did. I go into the plants that I actually planted in 2022 and talk about that. So I'm not going to get into that anymore. But anyway, I hope this is really helpful. I'm going to be recording one more video about woody shrubs. So if you have questions, let me know, because I'm going to mostly be answering questions in that video, so this one doesn't get too long. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. Please like and subscribe, and download those tips for selling flowers to florists if that's what you do, and be on my email list for all of the future information. I hope this has been helpful. It's been really a fun journey on YouTube. Thanks for coming along. That's all for today. Bye, guys.